Palworld taking over as everybody's loving Pokemon with guns, I figured it would help if going into the game you had some kind of foundational understanding of easy do's and don't do's and what to look out for. So these are my top 10 things that I would recommend everyone understand and know going into the game to maybe save yourself some time. And maybe if you're near the end of the game or you're nearing the end of the game, you're looking up different things, it may help you try to understand better ways to do things. So without further ado, let's get into it. First off, number one, base building. Just like real estate, this is all about location, location, location for resources. There are several major resources in the game, and I say major because there's more than like 3 or 4, obviously, but there are some essential ones you need to make things like gunpowder, to make weapons, to make anything, POW balls, everything you're gonna need in the game. So don't do what I did, which is take 10 steps from when the game starts you off and say, this looks good, and just drop a base there. But I mean, you can move your base. It's just you don't want to have to move your base after you've already started establishing things where they are. So I would recommend finding a good resource location to start with. Around the map in the easiest area where the game starts you, there are several really, really good locations that give you all types of resources that you're really going to need. So my recommendation would be the 2 spots that I'm showing right here. There's a third, but the 2 lower ones are the easiest ones to start off, get right to. There's nothing really around you that's going to automatically start trying to kill you while you're in your base just doing stuff, or challenge your pals while they're helping you do things on your base. And they're really good for resources. One has a little bit of everything. It's the perfect spot. It is about 30, 40 yards away from where the game starts you. And then one that's further up is the one I recommend second, and it would be the best base you're gonna get to get Palite, I think that's how you say it, or Palite, I never figured it out, but it's what you're gonna need to make POW balls and a lot of the things that the game is gonna give you resource-wise to catching pals easier. So this is probably the biggest cache of where you're gonna get those resources that I've seen so far starting off in the game. Bases are twofold. They help you get resources passively, and they help you create things that you're going to need to play the game passively. I say passively because you can manually do all that, but the point of the game is to catch pals to help you do these things while you're out playing the game. So finding a location that has the resources for them to do that, definitely a need. Now when it comes to building things the base will allow you to build as you start going through the base missions, I would say cluster resources together. What I mean by that is, if it is a wood harvesting, put it in a specific spot so that you know right next to that you're going to put your stone harvesting. You can go down all of your, I say Ingrams because I play Ark a lot, but you can go all the way down your Ingrams that you can unlock in the game and see everything you can possibly get. If it has a question mark, it's because you haven't discovered the PAL yet, or you haven't discovered the thing you need to get that yet. But all the hard are like weapons, structures, all that's already shown for you to get. So I would recommend scrolling down that, or check out a YouTube video on the best starter bases as well to see what you need to be ready to have space for. You can demolish something once you put it up and get your resources back. So that is a benefit to it in case you don't like how things are looking as you're expanding your base. But I would definitely recommend putting resources in one spot, all the PAL beds in one spot. It just helps the clustering go away. And the clutter go away and you cluster them better. Sometimes your pals will get stuck up on objects, or they'll be randomly stuck on the edge of where your base is, and it happens more often than I wish it would. And the easiest way to make sure that doesn't happen is to make sure all your resource gathering that your pals would do are clustered together so that they don't have to go too far or walk around too many different things. It doesn't happen often, but at least once or twice when I'm playing the game, I'll come back and a pal's starving or angry because it's hungry because it's stuck up in a tree or something stupid like that. So that's just something to look out for. Number 2, stats and respecing. So you have a limited amount of tech points. You can receive tech points from leveling up, and you can also get points from finding fast travel nodes and random tech journals that are laying around. The tech journal will just be something you pick up, you check your inventory, all you have to do is use it, and you get a tech point from that as well. After discovering all the locations, max leveling up, the random tech journals you're going to find will be your primary way of gaining tech points from that point on to unlock all the things that you might want to do. There are not enough tech points by the time you hit 50 and find all the nodes to get you everything you're going to want, or even everything you can get. You're going to have to limit the things that you pick, but that's where getting those tech journals are going to come in handy. You can farm bosses for them. Some bosses are guaranteed, I don't know about guaranteed drops, but they at least have a chance to drop them, and farming them is probably going to be your best way to find those journals and continuously getting points that you can unlock the engrams that you'd like. Also, with leveling up comes stat increases. I put a lot of points into damage early on, thinking that it was going to help, and then once I started getting guns and stuff, I realized that does not matter at all. So I think I wasted probably 10 or 15 points in damage. I would recommend primarily focusing on health, stamina, and carry weight. Maybe not in that order. I would do health, carry weight, then stamina, honestly, because you're going to be riding your pals more often than not, so stamina for you doesn't matter that much, but your carry weight matters because as you're picking up resources, you're going to be bogged down and not able to move or run because you're over encumbered. So I would definitely recommend health first, of course, and then secondly, doing your carry weight. Now, let's say all this happens, you hit level 50, you find all the fast travel locations, and you've used a lot of different tech journals and you're having trouble continuously getting points now so that you can keep going, unlocking all the engrams that you want. If you decide that there are things that you may have unlocked that you really shouldn't have or you really did need, which I think is going to end up happening to everyone unless you just watch a bunch of videos beforehand and learn exactly what you want to do, you can make a concoction in the highest level healing lab that you can build, and it will allow you to respec all your points in both your character and the engrams. So you're going to get all those points back, all your tech points back, and be able to respec everything that you want there, as well as the health, stamina, so on, anything else you may have upgraded incorrectly there. Number 3, PAL's working, skills, and passive abilities. So this is one that is probably the more intricate thing that you need to look at in terms of understanding PALs in Palworld. So all PALs have a partner skill, active skills, and passive skills. And then within that, there's also a work suitability. So the easy way to think of it is partner skills are exactly what they sound like. They're skills that once you build a saddle for that PAL, you'll be able to use the skill they have. The larger PALs, most of their skills are A, you can ride them, and B, they can do different things. Some can just be mounted and used as transportation. Some can shoot rockets like a B-52. Oh, I guess B-52 drop bombs, they don't really shoot rockets, but some have grenade launchers, some have guns, some do nothing at all. It's going to range in what they do. All you have to do to figure out what this is go to the PAL that you have and go click on them, and then it'll say at the top left, right underneath their level, their partner skill, and then it'll describe what it is. Your partner skill level can be increased when you get higher in level yourself and create this machine that essentially allows you to make your PAL you choose absorb the same type of PAL. So if you collect 10 of a PAL, you can pick one of those 10 and it'll absorb the other 9. And so your partner skill level for your PAL will go up, and the PAL itself's stats will increase, and you can just keep doing that infinitely. So technically 50 is the highest level, but they can get higher and higher and higher from that. The stars above their level will determine how many times they've done this process. It has a max of 4. Active skills are their abilities. It's the abilities that they're going to use when you throw them out of their PAL ball to help you fight, or if they're big enough for you to be able to mount, you can mount them and then use those abilities to fight for you. There can only be 3, and you can swap them out after purchasing other PAL abilities, or they unlock them themselves. Passive skills seem to be myriad. They range from Coward to Flame Emperor, as you can see here, all the way to Aggressive or Arsonist or weird things like that. They all obviously means something, and you can tell whether it's a good or bad skill to have just simply by looking at it without even knowing what the name actually may indicate. If it's a black skill, then that means it's standard. If it's a red skill, then that means it's bad. And if it's a golden skill, that means it's good. Deeper from there, at the far right of the name of the skill, you're going to see arrows. Up is good, down is bad. The easiest way to see it. The more arrows up you have, the more good it is. The more arrows down you have, the more bad it is. If you go back into the PAL's description again and hover over the passive skill, it will tell you exactly what each of these skills do. And for the last part, it's going to be work suitability. Now, there are 12 work suitabilities that are possible for a PAL to have. They're all going to be used within your base. None of these things really matter outside of gathering resources or helping you. You can use them outside your base, but in terms of making them the most suitable and efficient, you're going to be using them at your base. For instance, my Blazamut has a level 3 kindling. As you can see under work suitability, it has the fire symbol kindling. That means when it comes time for me to start creating ore, I have to melt the ore down. Now, if I use just any random, easy to find fire PAL, it's going to be a level 1, which means it's going to take them, let's say hypothetically, 10 minutes to melt down one ore, as opposed to me using Blazamut, which means it would take a third of that time to do it. There's the highest I found so far is level 4. I haven't found anything higher than level 4 for well, specifically kindling or anything else. That's the highest I've found. As you can see, his mining is level 4 as well. If I had bought the stone quarry and put it in my base for him to go work at to make me stone, I'm sure he would blaze through the stone, no pun intended. I only use him for fire stuff because I have so many PALs that have a level 4 mining that it's super efficient to use him for fire unless I swap him out because I have 3 bases. But that's kind of when you're going to start needing to look at those kinds of things. Once you catch yourself a decent amount of PALs, you're going to want to start looking at their work suitability and having them out there. The primary work suitabilities you're going to need to have for certain are planting, handiwork, lumbering, mining, and watering. Those are the absolute must-haves. Almost every smaller PAL comes with transporting, so you're not going to really need to worry about that, but those are the needs because all your PALs are going to end up starving and getting depressed and getting injured if they're not fed. And the easiest way to feed them is to put down a little plot and seed it, and make sure you have seeds in your inventory for them to pull from. And if you have a planting and watering and gathering, that's it. That's all you need. If you have those 3 at one base, then that PAL is going to water it. They're going to gather it after. They're going to plant more as it comes up, and they're going to put it away into the food so they can all feed off of that. And you have yourself a sustainable base from that point on. They don't drink water in this, so all they need is that food and beds to sleep in and keep it rotating. They will still have random attributes come up like or I guess ailments, not attributes, that say they're depressed or sad or something like that. That you can handle yourself, but you don't have to worry about them starving. That's been my number one thing for my bases is I'll put down 15 PALs in a base and only have one plant there popping out crops. That's not nearly enough for all of them, so I'll have to put down like 3 and make sure I have enough planting it and watering it. So it gets a little intricate the further you go, but those are the essential things you need to know from this screen when you're looking at PAL information. The partner skills to help you, the passive skills to also help you, the active skills to help you fight, and the work suitability to help you grow. PAL saddles. So I know I kind of just went over this with 3, but a little bit more intricately. So to make PAL saddles, you have to create a PAL gear workbench. It's the only function it has in the game is to make saddles. Once you unlock the saddle Ingram with your points, it'll show you in here exactly what resources you need to make that saddle and exactly what it will do for you. So Blazamut, all you can do is ride him. That he doesn't come with any inherent abilities from riding him, but the most famous PAL so far, the face of Palworld, is Grisbolt's minigun. Grisbolt being the PAL, his saddle gives him a minigun, and you can ride him, and it says right there clearly, makes Grisbolt fire a minigun when ridden. So they all give you a description of what you get from making this saddle. So before you go make a bunch of saddles for random PALs just because you start catching them, I would look at this first, because like I said, you have a limited amount of points that you can use to unlock these saddles to make, and I would review the ones you know for sure you want to use, and then continue going. One of the most common ones early on people use is Daydream's necklace, because it allows Daydream to stay outside the PAL ball when you have Daydream equipped and fight for you. So you can throw out a whole separate PAL to help you fight enemies and bosses while Daydream's out also fighting. The only time I found that to be a little less helpful than more helpful is when you're trying to catch a PAL and you get them right on the brink, and then Daydream one-shots and kills them and you can't catch them. So that's the only downside. But, you know, just the grenade launcher for Mosana's going around the internet right now pretty... Well, everything has gone around at this point, but it's one of the more funny, derpy, cool ones that is actually useful to use. Another one would be Jet Dragon's missile launchers. Basically turns them into a F-22 Raptor and just starts bombing everybody. It's pretty awesome. So definitely choose wisely. Look ahead. Everything's out there now. You can research everything. If you know there's a certain PAL just from look alone that you want, like I'm a Gengar fan from Pokemon. I don't care what the team best... It could be a god level ghost Pokemon in Pokemon. I'm getting Gengar as my ghost. That's just, it is going to happen. So if you found a PAL in Palworld that you automatically know, I'm going to have that one, then I'd just look up what the saddle is, make sure it's something that is useful. If not, don't waste your points on it. You don't need to make the saddle if it's something that's not going to help you. Like if you love Blazemut, but you don't want to ride him around, don't spend the points on it. All you're going to do is ride them around. You don't get anything extra for it. So look ahead, make sure you're picking the right ones. And again, like I said earlier, if you do happen to wait till late game, start realizing these things, you can always make a electric medicine workbench late game, and then make yourself a memory wiping medicine. Get the resources, make it, resets all your stats. You can start from scratch again now that you've experienced the full game. You know what PALs you like and dislike, and go from there. Number 5, PAL catching methods. So this is pretty straightforward for anybody who's played Pokemon. You basically just wear down their health and then catch them. The reason I set this as a number because, of course, it's not that simple. So obviously you want to start off with all beginner PALs. Beginner PALs are going to be the lesser, weaker PALs that start off at lower level. Whenever anyone references a difficult PAL or hard or easy areas, it's really just referring to the average level of the PALs in that area. So the starting area of Palworld, I think they're all less than 10 or 15, so it should be pretty easy to catch majority of those. And then you can use those PALs to fight tougher ones and move forward. That's the essential of the game. The PAL ball level that you're using matters the most. That's probably the biggest reason why I thought this would be necessary to do, because you can wait till later game to actually end up doing, because you can wait till later in the game, start catching some of the PALs you want to, and not trying to grind them out early on if they're more difficult to catch. That's what I did. I caught all the ones I knew I kind of wanted to beef up and continue on. I moved forward in the game's progression, and as I started going up in level, I was able to build better machines that make better PAL balls, and then I got to the point where I could make the legendary balls, and that was it. From that point on, I just started only cranking those out to catch everything. You're going to find all kinds of PAL balls on the ground around the map, so those are the ones I use for things that don't really need that level of PAL ball, but it says next to each PAL ball exactly what level range it's best at catching. So you're going to want to keep moving up in terms of PAL ball quality the higher up you go in terms of PALs as well. So the legendary spheres, the highest one you're going to be able to catch, and it's a guaranteed catch for anything that isn't at a boss level or below. For bosses, it still may take 1, 2, 3, sometimes 5, but unless you're trying to catch a level 50 PAL, it's basically a guaranteed catch. Number 6, dungeons, bosses, and towers. So in the world of Palworld, there are these 3 different, I guess, objective areas is what I would call them. The dungeons are exactly what they sound like. You'll walk up to it looks like a cave entrance, and it'll be a flat black area where you can't enter. You have to specifically hit X or whatever you press on PC to enter it, and then it loads you in. So the dungeons have multiple areas within them, each packed with enemies, and at the very end of the dungeon, which there is no particular way to walk through them, I've learned, they all have a very similar layout, but sometimes the boss can end up in different spots of that layout. So once you find the boss and defeat them, you can exit through the back part of where the boss is and leave. area bosses are different. They appear on your map. You'll see a circular image of the actual area boss, and once you defeat or catch them, there'll be a check mark over their face so that you know, hey, I've already been in that area, I've already taken care of that boss, and you can continue going without visiting the same one over and over again. Tower bosses are the final bosses of the game. They can be completed over and over again without a cooldown. So once you enter the tower, if you defeat them, it'll pop you out the top of the tower. You could literally drop to the bottom of the tower and walk right back in and do it again. So they're the only ones that I found that are like that, because area bosses have cooldown timers that seem to be fixed, but I don't know what it is. I've waited full day in game and gone back and they're there. I've waited a couple hours in real life and gone back and they weren't there. So it seems to be a precise time in the game of a day. So I guess you could go travel back to your base, sleep, and then go back and beat the area boss again. Number 7, XP farming and resource drops. So the best way possible that I've discovered to level up and get large amounts of XP is by beating tower bosses and area bosses. There are more area bosses than tower bosses by far, and the respawn rate of the area bosses vary, but the tower bosses are automatic. They're just a little tougher. So if you are later in the game farming the earlier bosses, maybe, I guess, more efficient, because you can just drop down, go back in there and keep doing it on repeat, but it's not as fun. It's going to get monotonous, and then it's more grindy in a non-fun way, and this game is really built around you being able to explore and level up as you do so. So I would recommend just going area boss to area boss as you can and continuing that way so that you don't burn out on the game just from fighting the same tower boss over and over again. Also, the number one way Palworld pushes you to continue exploring and catching pals is by focusing on catching those 10 pals per pal. So every pal that you catch that's a different type of pal, not type as in grass, fire, type as in it is literally a separate pal completely. Every different one you catch has a 10 catch cap of XP boost. So if you find a Blazamut and you catch him, that's 1 of 10, and it's going to pop up on the right side of the screen and tell you that you got that XP boost for it. I would catch 9 more as quickly as possible, or if there's other things around the area, catch all of those and keep doing that until you get 10. Start off with the weaker pals first and the easiest ones to do it, because the XP boost is the same. You do that all the way to 10, move on to the next one. All the way to 10, move on to, you'll hit 50 well before you even clear half the pals, because if you're doing it and moving around the map as you need to get to the next pal to get to 10, the game progresses you further and further to the more difficult areas where you're going to need to start building weapons and getting armor and fighting bosses to get stronger pals and stuff like that. So I think they did the XP progression really well in this game because of you needing to move forward to continue getting the XP and catching and in bosses. Now, as for resource drops, learning the primary resources and where to farm them are key to success in this game. Also, upgrading your base so that you can get the max of 3 bases to make that resource farming most efficient is also a key thing to moving along in the game and keeping the fun in the game. Now, one of the primary resources in the game is Paldium fragments. You can find those everywhere in the map, but there are some resources that you can only find in certain areas. Sulfur is a big one. You need sulfur to make gunpowder, which you need to make bullets. So that's going to come up. Wood and stone is very simple, and you can even make your own quarries basically at your base and have your pals just chip away at that. But you're going to run into things like needing polymer, carbon fiber. Once you start making weapons, a lot of the weapons require the ancient civilization parts, which is literally a spark plug. I think it's hilarious. They like 3D scanned a spark plug and just called it an ancient civilization part because they're in the future and we're in the past. But anyway, you get those only by beating bosses. They're the only things in the game that drop ancient civilization parts, so it makes you have to fight bosses to get these weapons to make more things. So again, it's forcing you to progress, fight more things. Pal fluids is also another big thing you're going to need, and you only get those from water pals. So defeating water pals gets you pal fluids, so you're going to want to farm them some too. So just starting to learn where the resources are. I'm going to put up a map showing the primary areas for all the resources, and I'm going to have in the description a couple links that are going to show you the best places to get all the resources in the map for you to farm and putting your base locations, because in the end of the game you can put up to 3 bases down. I would recommend one in the starter area, one north of the starting area, because there's a lot of dense areas for getting Paldium there, and one in the hot area, in the volcano area, because there you're going to be able to find basically everything you need for weapons is going to be there. Sulfur and charcoal, the main two, and there's a lot of resource areas there where you can find both. If you're confident in your initial base, then I would say forget putting the second base near the Paldium crystals. I would do one base in the starting area, one in the west fire volcano area, because they have a lot of charcoal there but not as much sulfur. And then if you go to the more northern northwest, I guess, desert area where Anubis is, he's a boss around the area, they have a lot of sulfur there, so I'd put a base there. And if you just mine those two things, every time you go back to those bases, you're going to be able to grab so many resources, just come back and crank out bullets and bullets and bullets to fight all these bosses later on. Number 8, skill fruits. Skill fruits can be found by defeating pals, bosses, but more easily and more commonly on these shining, glowing blue and brown trees that are around the map. They sprout different skill fruits every day that you go back, every in-game day that you load back in and go back there. You'll find different ones there. These are all new skills for your pals to use. Once you go up and collect the skill fruit, you can then go into your inventory and it'll explain to you what the move is, or the ability, or they're called skills in this game, that it will give to the pal that you choose. You press the button to choose, and then it will go to all the pals in your pocket, and it'll only allow you to use it on the ones that are elementally able to use that pal ability. Once you decide which pal you want to use the fruit on, it'll tell you, hey, so you know, it's learned this, and now it's been put away. You can check it in the pal screen. You say, okay, and then you just go over to your pal that you just gave the skill fruit to, and you click on any of the active skills they currently have, and it'll show you a list of all the skills they know, and including the one you just gave them, and they can switch out that easily and continue going. I have learned that if you do this mid-combat, it will not swap over that ability unless you mount and unmount, or pull them back into their ball, throw them back out. That's the only way that it's going to reset the fact that you just swapped out those abilities so they can have access to said ability. Number 9, elemental matchups. So much like any game with elemental, I guess, fighters, and much like Pokemon, there are elemental matchups that you're going to want to know before you go into boss fights or area boss fights, so that you don't get just beaten in terms of a bad matchup. So stacking your pocket with pals that can be more effective against the bosses and higher level pals you want to have will be the best and most efficient way to fight, and give you the best chance to catch them if that's your goal. All the tower bosses are going to require you to have a solid weapon on your side and to plan ahead and accordingly to who you're about to fight to make sure you have a good pal to match up against them in your pocket. I would recommend doing at least 3 pals that are opposite element of the boss you're going to fight. If you don't have that many that are strong enough, then 2 at a minimum in case one gets killed. That way you can pull focus or swap between them as you fight. The chart right here shows you the matchups, and the arrows point to what is strongest against what. So at the top it's water strongest against fire, which is strongest against grass, which is better than ground, which is better than electric, and all the way around the wheel. Fire's strongest against ice, which is strongest against dragon, which is strongest against dark, which is strongest against neutral. So that's the wheel right here is basically what you want to go on. The ice, dragon, dark, and neutral are all one-offs. They're obviously out there in the PAL world, but it's more common to find water, fire, grass, ground, and electric than it is ice, dragon, dark, or neutral. Those are kind of centralized in terms of area or time of day. A lot of the dark ones come out at night. A lot of the ice ones are only found in the ice biome area, where it's not biome, but like in the ice mountains. And dragon is just a type, so you're gonna need to find things that are dragon to find the dragon types. And neutral are kind of everywhere. I'll be honest. There's no like area with a conglomerate of neutral pals. Number 10, merchants for pals and items. So PAL merchants can sell you PALs, and you can also sell them your PALs. So once you collect those 10 PALs that you wanted, and let's say you're not interested in really upgrading that PAL by absorbing the additional ones you have into one, then you can feel free to sell them. You can also, if you decide to catch humans, which you can definitely do in the game, sell them here to the PAL trader. He will buy people, and sometimes for a premium, depending on their level and what they are. The item merchants will range in terms of the items you can buy from them, depending on location and where they are. There are traveling merchants that sell more like potions and things that you would honestly need while you're out and about, while the fixed merchants all have a specific set of things that like don't seem to change between what they have, but generally some areas have 2 different item merchants, so you can get a variety in that way. You can capture the PAL merchants as well, and that way you always have one at your bases on standby, because their inventory and their ability to buy from and sell to doesn't change. Even though you've caught them and you have them at your base, it changes. I mean, it stays the same as if they were at wherever they were when the game generated them. So that was a quick and easy 10 things that I think everyone should know before getting into the game, because all of those will be very useful in playing it from scratch if you have done research or if you haven't. If this is part of your research, I would recommend watching tons more videos. They're all short, sweet, and to the point. This game does not require a 2-hour syllabus on how to do things. It's very easy, very straightforward. And because the foundation's based on games that we are all similar to, games that we are all used to playing, and it mirrors Pokemon and other things so well that you kind of get the gist of what to do and how to play the game. So honestly, it's a more fun, what you want to do style game. And the pointers that I gave in this video are pretty much just to make it easier for you to be able to continue to have that fun. I don't really think this game is meant to be grinded out and just sit there spamming the same thing over and over again for the same boss that you can hit 50 and do. Because even if you hit 50, there's so much more you still have to do in the game that it's more fun to just explore, expand, and catch more PALs as you go. And you're going to find some pretty awesome and very difficult PALs. So I'm going to come out with a video pretty soon reviewing the game, and then one that kind of shows you how to catch some more difficult PALs. There's tons of videos already out there, but I found basically a way to cheese every boss that you can't beat, and every area boss, not just tower bosses, that are more difficult to maybe beat and catch. So when those come out, definitely check them out if you're interested. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe so you can see any more content that I'm going to have. If you didn't like it, dislike the video, leave a comment, tell me why you didn't like it, and I'll try to work on those things as I continue to improve and make videos. Thanks you all for watching. Catch you all in the next video. Peace.